This is how we will spend money efficiently, how we will improve transparency, and this is how we will bring value to this specific chain. I don't really understand why, as a consumer chain, if you bring a lot of revenues, especially, on MEV or things like that, why would you bring all those kind of revenues to Atom stakers? If you want to be a validator, you should not do infrastructure. You should run your own infra. Don't use white labeling. This is an issue. If you don't have this technical knowledge, just delegate to some validators that are expert in that case.
Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast. I've got Kam with me here from Imperator. Welcome, Kam.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first question, as always, it's the Bare Metal Podcast. What's your setup and where are you guys hosted?
Yeah, for sure. So at Imperator, basically what we do, first of all, we are all based in France. So our infra is basically based also in mainly France, but also in Europe. And regarding infrastructure, so we have bare metal and cloud providers. So the thing is that we host everything in the data center. So we don't host ourselves, and we use different kind of providers. First of all, we use mainly OVH and Scaleway, which are providers mainly from France. We can use a provider like AWS or Google Cloud Platform and so on, but we want to focus mainly on French provider because it's better for decentralization. And I know that the different chains that we validate like this kind of decentralization regarding the providers. So this is what we do. And then in terms of infrastructure, basically regarding our nodes, for example, on the chains we validate, I would say that we have, first of all, one main node and two backups nodes so that we can keep, the uptime quite great. And if we have any issue with our main node, it just switch to the backup nodes so that, we have a good performance and we can keep it. And regarding, for example, in terms of risk and regarding, for example, how do we prevent from double signing as a validator, we use TMKMS. Yeah. Uh-huh. So we use TMKMS, so it can prevent us from double signing, because the thing with TMKMS and that we like is that it just saves the states from the previous signature, so that we won't double sign the same block. So this is basically what we do with our infrastructure.
Okay, I have no more questions. You answered all of them right from the get-go. I was going to ask, okay, how do you prevent double signing on your backups? But okay, all clear. I understand. So that's pretty cool. Let me ask one more thing. Do you guys buy any of your own hardware, or do you generally use like hardware inside, like rented from the say Scaleway?
Yeah, no.
Do you mix?
No, we rent it.
Okay, you rent it, but you have a physical machine and you just go and install stuff in there.
Exactly.
Okay. Makes sense. And let's look into what Imperator does. Obviously, I looked at your guys' website, right? And I read you guys are specialists in data management. That's interesting to us. Like, we do a lot of data crawling and management over here in our lab. So how do I interpret this? Like, what do you guys do in like data?
Yeah, for sure. So our first mission, I would say, is Imperator is a core contributor at Osmosis. So there is half of our team who are working at Osmosis directly, and we have the two founders of Imperator are two data engineers. So they were working in some great institutions in France, as in big data and so on. And when they started the business, the Imperator business, it was almost 2 years ago, and at that time, Osmosis was quite new and was about to launch. And Dylan and Ibra, who are the founders of Imperator, were chatting with Sunny and the team at Osmosis, and they were just asking what are their needs, what do they need, and the guys from Osmosis said we need something like a website in which we can have all the data from the Osmosis decks. So Ibra and Dylan started to work on this kind of stuff, and they created what's called now the info website of Osmosis. So it's info.osmosis.zone. And basically what we do and what our team do, mainly the data engineers, is that we provide APIs from the Osmosis blockchain so that any developers or anyone can query data directly from the Osmosis blockchain. We provide the dashboard, so the info website, so that anyone can see, the different the volume, the prices on the Osmosis DEX. And we are also a huge RPC provider. So we are the main on Osmosis, and we are also working with Axelar. So we are also the main RPC provider for Axelar as well. So yeah, basically this is what we do on the data side, and we are keeping, we keep expanding this business because this is our main focus and this is our specialty. Because yeah, most people from Imperator are from has a data background. So yeah, this is our core business, I would say.
That's great to hear. I love when validators come from different experiences and backgrounds, because then they can all contribute sort of like unique things to the rest of the ecosystem. Let me ask, do you guys, so RPC nodes, obviously great service if they're public, if they're open, that's a great service to the community. Do you guys also run any archive nodes, like in particular nodes that index older blocks so you can get some history? Because if you're data science, like somebody interested in trends and long time history, do you guys do any of that?
Yeah, so we do it for Osmosis. Right now it's only for Osmosis, but yeah, because I mean, Ibrar and Jelan are data engineer at Osmosis also. So yeah, they manage the archive node as well.
So even archive nodes, yeah, those are expensive to run, right? So kudos for that. Thank you.
Exactly.
That's a service
exactly.
To everybody. Another thing I learned about you guys is it says you guys are community focused, and maybe in contrast to some other larger validators that are focused on institutional sort of customers. How does that affect your work? How do you connect with delegators? What's your strategy here to attract delegations?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, so on my side, so my role at Imperator is taking care, of the business development, of growth and strategy. And in order to attract delegators, I would say we will have different main topic. The first one is based on the commission. So we try to be quite attractive in terms of commission, and we can do it because we are a small team. We are just 5 people, so we can be quite aggressive on the commission rates, so that this is the first point to attract delegators. And the other point is that, first of all, we also provide different services. We are, relayers on different chains. We provide RPCs. We provide APIs and so on. And we are also, I would say, community focused because we try to provide a lot of different content to the community about the Cosmos ecosystem, about the chains that we want to support, the chains we like. And what we do basically is that we do some kind of interviews, like what you do. We do some interviews about the project that we like. For example, we have a show which is called Fast and Crypto. It's a really fast show. We have, videos from 2 minutes to 5 or 10 minutes. And the idea is that to provide content to the community so that they can learn more about a project that we like, a project that we want to support. So this will be the first point. Then we provide, different kind of content like articles, so that or staking guide as well. For example, if people don't know how to stake on a specific chain, right, we provide this kind of article so that they can learn more about, first of all, the chain, then the project, and they can learn more how to stake to a validator. So this is the kind of stuff that we do. And this, in terms of marketing, is quite great. And for our brand at Imperator is great because delegators can learn more about us as well through the project that we support. And if they like our content and they want to support us, then they just delegate to us. And maybe also one point that differentiates ourselves to other validators is that we are also highly connected to our community, so that if someone has any question, they can just reach out to us on our DMs on Twitter, or we also have a Telegram chat or also a Discord channel. So yeah, we try to be as close as possible with our community.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, but it's absolutely necessary. So it's great that you guys are doing this. So you mentioned points of differentiation. What caught my attention was you guys seem to be covered against soft slashing. Can you explain like how that's done, or like do you guys have a pool, or have you taken out insurance contracts to cover soft slashing penalties?
Yeah, for sure. So what we do basically is that we can cover from soft slashing, and what we do is that we always keep a certain amount of our rewards to just to ensure ourselves. So this is what we do. So in that case, when we have a soft slash, we can reimburse directly all our delegators. For example, this is what happened recently on the Kujira chain, because so we had a certain issue with our Oracle, because the thing is, we also on Kujira you also have to run the node and also run oracles. And the thing is that on our wallet we didn't have any fund on the Oracle side, so we had a soft slash. And what we did is that directly we just pay back everybody who hold our delegators. So this is what we do, and we can do it when it's a soft slash because it's usually not a great amount, not a lot, a big amount. I think for example on the Cosmos Hub it's 0.01%, and on all other chains it's quite small. So we can cover for that, right. But we don't. Yeah, but unfortunately we can't cover for double signing, and this is why we do a lot of different protection like TMKMS to prevent from this kind of stuff.
Sure, that's fair, and it's a nice initiative. It shows you take care of your delegators and want to make them whole even against small, potential infractions. This brings us, so I sort of change tacks here to think about, we were talking about what Imperator does, what you guys contribute. Let's look at the whole validation industry, in context. What do you think about, what should validators actually compete on, or what do they compete on most? What you guys see, and what's the future of staking in Cosmos?
Yeah, for sure. So basically what validators are competing on is that they're competing on the active set. So the goal is obviously, to stay in the active set. And if you're in the lower set, your goal is to just, be a little, to go up in the set. Same if you're in the middle, you want to go up, and so on and so on. So basically, all validators are competing on the place on the active set. And what validators can do, just to attract more delegation and so on, is that they can first of all just compete on the commission rate. Then they can compete on the additional services that they can provide to the users, like the delegators, or to the chain itself. For example, I know that we are relayers on some chains, and the core teams really like this kind of work, so they can delegate on our node to first of all cover the relaying costs, but also to show that they really like our work and they want to support us. So you can provide additional service to attract more delegations. And this is basically what we do. And then I know that there is, of course, some institutional validators that are just working with big institutionals, big VCs, and so on, and they do some contract to attract some delegation on their node as well.
This is, I was going to ask if you guys can attract foundation delegations for like the public goods work that you do. You already mentioned that you have been able to attract some foundation delegation for IBC relaying. Would you say that this is a rule, or this happens occasionally? Most of the IBC relayers for most of the chains, you guys run a lot of IBC relayers. Are those somehow backed by contribution from the foundation, or is it typically not the case and only sometimes you get this delegation?
So it depends. It depends on the teams. I mean, some teams are really open to that, and they know that relaying services are really important, especially in the Cosmos ecosystem. So they can support, for example, some relayers. So some teams does that. Some teams can give some grants for that. For example, I know for Axelar that we receive a grant for that. Some teams can just give a delegation, and some teams sometimes it's a bit difficult to reach out them, and then it could be a bit difficult for relayers to to receive something in exchange for relaying cost. But basically, what we do first when we want to provide relaying services is that we are always in touch with the core teams first to see if they are open to that, if they want us to provide relaying services, and if it's the case, then how we can work together just to so that we can work correctly on this side.
Absolutely. Which brings me to the question of teams and projects. Of course, as validators, if you guys decide to validate a new chain, you are giving this chain some of your reputation, right? You're saying, we as Imperator are going to validate this chain. So in my mind, it's really important for you guys to be diligent and be careful about what projects you support because of this sort of reputation sharing. So my question here would be, how do you guys evaluate new projects? How do you decide where to, put your focus your validation services?
Yeah, for sure. So this is an important point because there's a lot of validators that are just running everywhere. And I think this is an issue because as a validator, my philosophy is that you put also your reputation at stake. And this is really important, to just check every project you want to validate on and be sure that the project will bring value to the ecosystem. And if it's valuable, then joining as a validator or not. So basically what we do first is that we do a lot of due diligence first on the social media to see what are the current trends on the different projects that are planning to launch on the Cosmos ecosystem. And then it's mainly me that take care of this kind of stuff. And what I do then when I heard about a project, I always check the documentation, check the white paper or light paper to see what kind of problem they solve and what kind of value they bring to the ecosystem. This is really important for me. And then if I think that the value is great, then I try to reach out to the core team directly. It can be through Telegram if I have any, on our network, if someone knows people from that specific team, we can get in touch and know more about that team. So yeah, then we just get in touch. We just jump on the call, to talk, to just meet so that I can introduce Imperator and I can learn more about the project, learn more about the team, learn more about the roadmap and so on. And see, if there is something great and if it's valuable. And then basically, I check a lot of different points. For example, if ever, the code is open source, if ever there is some audits that are coming soon, if ever regarding the team, if they have a background in the Cosmos ecosystem or not, and so on. And then with all this kind of due diligence, I just check if it's valuable for us to join the project as a validator or not. And if I think that it's valuable, I just talk to the team. Then we evaluate that all together, and then we say to the project that we are interested to join as a validator or not.
That sounds like a reasonable approach, at least from my perspective. Is there anything that would disqualify a project when you look at something and you're like, oh no, we don't do this type of stuff? Have you ever had this reaction?
Yeah, so yeah, we had some reaction regarding that. So first of all, if the team is anon, it can be a bit tricky, because sometimes it can be great developers and so on that want to bring value to the ecosystem, but it can be a bit tricky when the team is anon. It can be a bit hard to just join as a validator, and if this can be a bit tricky. And also one thing that we don't really like is if a project is just a fork of another project. This is quite money grab kind of project, and we don't really like it.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
You've mentioned
but
Cosmos.
I mean,
yeah. Please continue.
I mean, but now that we are quite, I would say, quite known on the Cosmos ecosystem, there is also a lot of different projects that are just reaching out us directly and send us, some documentation. So right now we don't have especially the need, to look for project, because there is a lot of different projects that are coming at us directly.
Right. Understood. Since you mentioned the ecosystem a couple of times, there's, of course, we all live in the cosmos here, and we live in cosmos land, cosmos governance, cosmos everything. So let's look at a few things. I'd like to get your take on within the cosmos ecosystem. So my first sort of ecosystem question is MEV. What do you think about MEV? Do you guys run MEV? What's the perspective for MEV in cosmos? What's the role of MEV in cosmos? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. So I think MEV is a quite interesting topic, especially on the Cosmos ecosystem, because it's very different from other ecosystems like Ethereum or Solana. Because on the Cosmos you have it's a group of different chains, so that you have to handle all those aspects which are very specific to Cosmos. And my opinion is that MEV can be really, really great on the Cosmos ecosystem. But the thing is that right now, the ecosystem is quite new, and there's a different new project that are coming very soon. So we are using we are working with the Skip team, and we are running a Skip on our nodes, mainly on Juno right now, on Evmos, and on Terra. And so what we like with the Skip team is that, first of all, you can prevent bad MEV. And this is a good, you can have, as a validator, you can have the option to choose if you want to prevent from front running or not. On our side, we decided to prevent from front running, because we think that it's harmful for users. So we don't want to have bad MEV on our ecosystem, And right now, I would say in terms of revenue, it's still a bit small, because Juno, there is not MEV depends on the activity, depends on the liquidity,
Absolutely.
and so on. So there is a lot of points to take into account. So right now it's still a bit small, but my guess is that with all the different projects that are coming soon, with all the liquidity that is coming soon, for example, we will have the DYDX chain that is coming. We have some other DEX that are coming, like Duality. We have Nebula that is coming also soon. And we will have all this kind of liquidity that will come on the Cosmos ecosystem. And this will attract a lot of MEV opportunity. And what I'm really excited about specifically is that, it will be cross-chain MEV. And why I really like it, because I think it could be a way to incentivize, IBC infrastructure. Because right now it's true that, as a relayer, if you don't have any partnership with the core teams or something like this, you will run relayers at your own cost, and you don't earn any money for that.
Right. You need to fund the transactions, right?
Exactly. And I think that cross-chain MEV can be a solution to incentivize relaying. And it can be a solution to incentivize relayers as well. I know that the IBC team will add also a fee to incentivize a bit more relaying, but cross-chain MEV can also be a really great option for that as well. And so, and specifically on Cosmos, we will have a lot of different DEXs, and cross-chain MEV can be huge on this ecosystem. So yeah, I'm ready.
Right. Especially arbitrage or something.
Arbitrage,
like that, right?
Yeah. I'm quite excited about MEV. I'm looking for having all those different projects that we launch. For example, there is also Say Network. I know that the Skip team will also work with Say, and all this this financial, I would say, AppChains that are coming really soon will attract more liquidity and more MEV activities.
So you think, if I can summarize from my side, you're expecting MEV to grow. Your prediction is MEV's activity is going to increase with all these new projects coming in. Second, MEV in your mind is a solution, partial solution to the sustainability issues around certain infrastructure in the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. And also what's great about MEV, especially on the Cosmos ecosystem, is that as an AppChain, you can have a lot of flexibility. So you can decide what you want to do. I know that Osmosis, for example, want to take all the MEV from the Osmosis chain and give it back to Osmos takers. I know that, for example, Duality has a different perception. They want to take all the MEV that we happen on Duality and give it back to liquidity provider, which is a different perspective, you know. And that's great also for the options, because they can decide what they want to do with MEV. And Cosmos offer a lot of flexibility on that side as well.
They can compete on ideas of how to best use MEV to promote the ecosystem.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's touch on some recent news. Right now on Twitter, there's a lot of activity around white label validators. So I got to ask, what's your stance on white label validators? Is there any circumstance in which white labeling makes sense, or do you disagree with white labeling completely? What are your thoughts around this?
So yeah, on our side, we don't do any white labeling. And my opinion is that we really have to, for example, what's happening right now, it's a bit worry, because basically what's happening is that you have one validator that is white labeling with a lot of different validators, and this validator has also the keys. So it will, the end is that at the end, this validator has a lot of voting power on the chain, even more than 33%. So this validator can basically halt the chain. And this is a huge issue on decentralization, a huge issue for the chain itself. So we really have to do something against this kind of behavior. This is really harmful for the chain. And my opinion about
in my mind, if I can interject here, in my mind there are two different issues here which have, in this particular difficulty that we're encountering now in Cosmos, we see both of these issues together, right? But one is control of your private keys, which should at all times be with the person who's identifying as the validator, who has access to the validator account, right? There should be one entity, let's say, and that is who the validator is. The second question is if they're running their own infra or they're using somebody to run their infra. What has happened here in this particular case is like the infra providers also generating the keys and then sharing them later with the team, right? So if what you're saying is true, and I haven't seen confirmation that it's more than 33%, but that would mean the Nakamoto coefficient is 1.
Yeah.
So not across countries or across big, but actually there's just one big validator. And if we're showing the validators as separate, it's actually, this is a wrong visualization. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's one guy holding all the keys. That's actually one entity in terms of validator accounts. It's a Sybil attack.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
So if let's I think this is a very clear and present danger and is not acceptable. But let's say we go one step back, right? Let's say the white label service works as follows. I am somebody who wants to participate in validating a chain, but I'm not an infra expert. Yeah. But I follow a guide and I generate my own keys, right? And they're in my possession. And then I sign a message like create validator, MSG create validator, right? And then somebody else runs the hardware for me. Would you say that helps decentralization or it hinders decentralization?
So in that case, I mean, yeah, it's difficult because there's for example, there's a lot of different entities, especially VCs that are that have the token that want to have their own validator because they will also have an impact on governance and so on, but they don't want to run any infrastructure, and in that case, they can rely on an infra expert that can run a node for themselves. But as long as I would say they have their own key and no one have more than this kind of voting power, it's okay. It's okay, but the thing is that my opinion about white labeling is that basically my opinion is that if you want to be a validator, you should not do infrastructure. You should run your own infra. Don't use white labeling. Right. This is an issue. I mean, validators are a specific domain and it's for infrastructure experts. So if you want to really run a validator, you need this kind of technical knowledge. Otherwise, it can be an issue. If you don't have this technical knowledge, just delegate to some validators that are expert in that case, and you will still have your own voting power based on your delegation. And you can override if you're not.
Exactly. So that would be my pushback on your original suggestion. The VC that has all these tokens, they can delegate them to some other validators. They're free to make deals with the validator, right? It's likely it's a big allocation, so they can, they still don't have to sort of white label. They would still have an avenue and keep most of the rewards because I'm sure they can make some sort of deal, right? So you would say, if I summarize your position, you would say in some specific cases, you could see your way in understanding, okay, somebody's using a white label service, but not at all wholesale. This can happen in like individual cases, but validators as a community should be runners of their own hardware, should be runners of their own infra and controllers of their own hardware. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing is, it's also, if you just do white labeling and there's, for example, one entity that is doing a white labeling on different nodes that are on the active set, I mean, that's not great for decentralization, because basically it's this, I mean, it will be the same entity behind that is managing all those nodes. So I think this can be an issue. I mean, it's great to have, different teams with their own strategy on how to manage the infrastructure, and not having, just one big entity behind that is managing the node for, different places on the state. Because first of all, it's of course, obviously, it's not great for decentralization, but also it takes a lot of places on the active set, and there's a lot of great teams that are really involved in the community for the project and so on, that are not on the active set because of this kind of issue.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think of it this way, but using white labels and getting into the active set, taking the spot of somebody else who would maybe run the node by themselves, and are contributors, right? Yeah, and in particular, from our side, as we look at decentralization and track basically correlated risk. White labeling introduces correlated risk, right? So all those nodes are managed, say, for one Ansible installation or using one playbook. And if the playbook's wrong, all those nodes are affected at the same time. So it introduces correlation. And now that voting power and that stake is not independent, and we can have larger outages. I guess that's what you're saying. Our perspective sort of from risk management and thinking about the health of blockchains and stability and resilience. And this attacks the resilience vector by introducing correlation in the risk and thus bigger outages and problems. So let's move to another topic here in terms of governance and Cosmos. Right now, Cosmos has had a hard time with governance. I don't think that's a secret.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have any propositions or any comments on Cosmos governance, where we can think about what could the future look like. What would be, let's say, a healthier approach.
Yeah. So regarding governance, there's a lot of issues. So first of all, I mean, there's one thing that I don't personally like, and I think a lot of people from the community are quite also upset regarding this, is that there is a lot of different validators, especially the big ones that have a lot of voting power, that are not really active on governance. So this is the first issue. For example, we have some centralized exchanges on some network that are not, that do not participate at all in governance. And that's an issue, for the network to improve the network, regarding the future of the network. This is a first issue. Then we have, you have also, how do we, use the funds from the community pools? So how do we do that? And right now we have a lot of, different proposals that are coming on chain, and some of them are just, for a little request. Some of them are for a huge request. It's not an efficient way to manage the funds. So there is some ideas. For example, one idea could be, for example, just, having maybe one group or one entity that would like to set up maybe a DAO or something like this, requesting from funds and then managing the funds on this side. It will be a way more efficient way to manage the fund, for example. I know that there is some, some great programs and so on that would like to get some funds from the community pool. I know that Osmosis has this with Osmosis grant program. They ask for a certain amount on the community pool, and if the proposal pass, they just manage this fund on their side, and it's a way more efficient way to spend money and to work closely with the grantees to bring more value to the chain. And there is currently one proposal. So right now it's on the form, it's not on chain now, but there is a group also that has been formed and would like to work on a grant program specifically to the Cosmos Hub. And there is one member of Imperator that is on this team. And we think that, having this kind of stuff, the way to manage, especially community fund, having maybe a lot of different groups, a lot of different DAOs that are managing funds on their side to, fund some public goods or fund some specific team that would like to bring value to the ecosystem could be a way more easier way to manage fund than just always, getting on chain, having, all those validators that just deciding if the amount is great or not, or if, sometimes it's just a very small request. And some people, some validators maybe don't really care about this kind of request, so they don't really look at it. So it's better to have a dedicated team that will spend time on all, the different proposition, and if it's correct, that just spend money on that.
Right. So of course, what happens is the hub. Let's talk about community hub as an example. They would delegate a certain budget, the management of a certain budget, to a small, let's call it an executive committee, which then evaluates proposals in a certain area. You said more of those should come up. So you envision sort of these DAOs being specific to certain areas, like these guys do, I don't know, IBC and interchain infrastructure. These guys do, I don't know, support of development, on the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint.
This is exactly what I wanted to say, because if there is some specific proposal, sometimes there is some validators or some people from the community that don't have this technical knowledge. So if we create, for example, some DAO specifically to a specific point, for example, if it's regarding marketing or regarding content, and we put an executive committee specialized in marketing or in content, taking care of this kind of stuff, it can be way better than just, letting the community that doesn't have this kind of knowledge to say yes or no.
How would you keep these guys honest? Because the construction here is to give them the budget up front and then they spend it, right? So I'm assuming, like, the way I think about it is then they have to come back for more at some point, which is a natural point where you evaluate their past work and say, okay, what has been done with this money? Has this been useful? Is this working well? Do we think this was done well? And then they can ask for more funds. Or are you thinking of some different structure, like interim evaluations or some sort of checks and balances? Well, how would you verify if the funds you've already provided have been well spent or well allocated?
Yeah. So I think that first of all, it should be a mandate. So on a really short period of time, like it could be 6 to 12 months or something like this. But still a really short time frame, and then having a multi-sig with people that are outside, this kind of team, so that they can have a view on this and see how the funds are spent. And what we also can do, and there is this on the proposal regarding the grant program of the Cosmos Hub, is having some members that are not from the team itself, but who are some members that are just checking if the funds are spent correctly or not. So that it can bring more transparency.
Okay, so like an oversight board,
exactly.
Like a board of directors, oversight board, like somebody's. So the executive committee is proposing the projects, evaluating the projects, but then there's like another set which is just looking at does this make sense? Once they have a suggestion, then these guys come in and they can veto it, or they can say, we don't like this. Can you work on this a little bit more? That's the construction. Is that the idea?
Yeah, this is what having an oversight committee with people that are not really related to any entities, but really people from the community that are not really related to anyone, and that could check if there is not, conflict of interest, or there is not some, spend that is not really done, or something that is strange. So I think we should really focus also on transparency, and having this kind of oversight committee can be can be a way, to improve transparency. And also what people should do is that, having their own website on which they can provide all this kind of information. For example, if they found a team, it should be on the website to explain what are the different conditions, what are, if there is some milestones,
right?
The milestone should be
some transparency guidelines which they have to fulfill to sort of divulge this information, and maybe some internal decision process, some points, like who voted.
Because this is how we will spend money efficiently, how we will improve transparency, and this is how we will bring value to this specific channel.
Right. I understand. Well, I hope on my side, I don't know what's a good construction for Cosmos, especially in today's atmosphere. But on my side, I'm certainly hoping there can be efficient ways to allocate some of these funds, because Cosmos definitely needs a lot of development. There's a lot of experimentation going on, so hopefully there'll be a way to allocate these funds and put them to work. Right, make sure stuff gets created. And when we're talking about funding projects, Cosmos is maybe singled out of among other ecosystems by their AppChain thesis, right? So saying like, look, the future of Cosmos, there's going to be a multiverse, there's going to be lots of sovereign app chains which talk together through IBC. This was always the discussion from the beginning, but today there are two things that are clear. One, funding the security for a sovereign chain is not exactly cheap. Costs money. Lots of validator sets are big, but that's one different. That's another problem. But number 2 and 3, there are other contenders for how to get security for your sort of app chain. Right? It doesn't need to be a sovereign chain. You could go in Dimension and build yourself a roll app. You could, if you just have a smart contract, you deploy on Saga, which will spin out sort of like a chain around your smart contract. There's interchain security, where you can buy security from the hub, which places a lot of load on the validators that are in the Cosmos hub. There are a lot of options, right? So does this original thesis of build an app chain for your use case, does it still hold today, or would you advise evaluating different opportunities?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I think building an app chain is great because it brings you a lot of flexibility and so on. You can have sovereignty over your block space, and on the other side is that you have, first of all, bootstrap a validator set, which is can be hard. You have to take care of your own security, which can also be hard, and you have to make it economically viable for the validators, right. and this is really hard. if you're a small chain, if you're a small team with not a lot of funds, this is quite hard to build this kind of option. So my opinion on this is that the AppChain thesis will still hold for chains and projects that are highly valuable and that could attract a lot of liquidity, a lot of consumers. Otherwise, it will just won't work. This is what we are currently seeing on all those different projects that try to build an AppChain. There is a lot of projects that are currently slowly dying because it's not viable for the validators to keep running the nodes. Yeah, it's not sustainable for the validators to keep running the nodes. So what we are currently seeing, especially here with this bear market, is that we see some validators that are just leaving the chain because they are running at a net loss for a lot of months, and they just don't want to keep validating that chain. So
can't sustain it.
Yeah. So what I would recommend for the projects that are coming on the Cosmos ecosystem is that maybe not launch a sovereign chain directly, just focusing on maybe why not checking, all these different features and all these different opportunities that they can have, for example, with interchain security, with Dimension, with Saga, and so on, and see what can fit for themselves. And first, see if they can attract customers, see if they can attract liquidity, and if the chain is profitable enough and they can, if it's profitable enough, then they can just spin up their own app chain. This is what we saw, for example, with DYDX. DYDX So it's different. There were different issues. I know that, regarding especially decentralization and so on, but they also wanted, to spin up their own app chain because first of all, they have a lot of volume, they have a lot of customers, and they wanted to have sovereignty over their own chain. This is why they wanted to build an app chain. And we will see, I guess, a lot of different, successful projects that will spin up their own app chain as well. But for those who are really new, I won't recommend this kind of stuff. Yeah.
So if I summarize this, you think the AppChain thesis of Cosmos is live, but projects have to graduate to it. They don't start out with it, but they have to work up to it. So they can use these different ways to experiment, maybe build sort of like a first version of their project or like a first iteration. And then if they see this potential, then they can flip and sort of fly out of the nest.
Yeah, let's take one example with, for example, interchain security. You want to build your own project. You don't want to bootstrap a validator set. You don't want to take care of this. So you can use interchain security, and if it's if it's a replicated security version, then you will have the same security of the Cosmos Hub. So this is great because you will have security at the beginning. You already have a validator set, and you can just focus on your own project. But let's say if this consumer chain is really successful, it attracts a lot of liquidity, a lot of activity, and there is a lot of activity, especially on the block space, on revenues, on MEV, and so on. Why, as a consumer chain, would you give all this to stakers from another token or validators from another chain? This is maybe one point and one issue that I maybe have with interchain security, is that my guess is that the most successful consumer chain won't stay a consumer chain. They will just spin up their own app chain afterwards, because you want to have sovereignty over your block space. You want to bring value to your token holders, instead of just bringing value to Atom stakers.
Wouldn't that be a valuable construction of the Cosmos Hub, though? Because if what you're saying just sparked sort of a different viewpoint in my head, then ICS would be like an incubator that would help determine, if the good projects could start there and move out. Of course, question happens, what about with bad projects? That stay there. The question would be like, would there have to be some sort of like governance proposal? We don't want to do this anymore. I have no idea if this has been worked out in ICS. But the view of ICS as reducing friction, as being one of those options to reduce friction toward a sovereign app chain, that would be, I think, a very helpful viewpoint for the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah, but basically, what I think is that the Cosmos Hub with ICS could be an incubator, because I don't really understand why, as a consumer chain, if you bring a lot of revenues, especially on MEV or things like that, why would you bring all those kind of revenues to Atom stakers, whereas you could do it to your own token holders and own token stakers if you have your own app chain, sovereign app chain. So my guess is that time will tell, time will tell. But my guess is that if consumer chain is highly successful, really see the point of staying with consumer chain, except if you only need to focus on security. For example, there is Circle who wants to bring native USDC, and they want to build. This will stay on a generic, asset chain. This kind of consumer chain can be great because we need security. So having a consumer chain that is, native asset is okay. But
they're not intended to grow themselves or whatever. Their main function is to issue USDC, and that has to be secure.
Exactly.
Right? That's maybe a good point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, we've discussed, we've gone through a lot of topics, and hoping that Cosmos has more projects and grows in the future and has a path towards sovereign app chains is maybe a great way to finish this podcast. So thanks very much for coming on, Kam. It was a great discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And it was great to talk to you.
Hopefully see you here again.
Yeah.